Inside Edition will not be seen tonight. Stay tuned now for a WCCO television news special.
Thanks for joining us for this Added Dimension special. Tonight we're going to spend some time looking at how long we might be at war. Although the President and the Pentagon say the fighting is going according to plan, the tone of news coverage has changed during the first week of battle. Here's what CNN's Wolf Blitzer reported 1 week ago tonight.
But by all accounts, the initial word here at the Pentagon, as far as the U.S. Is concerned, it was a very dramatic success.
But tonight on the network news broadcast, you could detect a difference in the war coverage. Here's NBC's John Cochran.
But with White House aides privately conceding that the war may drag on for months, they also concede that anti-war protests may grow in numbers and intensity.
As we reported at 10, today's briefing by the nation's top military men gave us a less glowing but still positive assessment of the war's first week. But when it comes to assessing the weeks ahead, the job gets dirtier, more dangerous, and more uncertain. Now, making use of our information center, Don explains what we've learned about where the war goes from here.
You remember General Colin Powell's vivid description of how U.S. strategy would work for destroying the Iraqi army. He said, first, cut it off, then kill it. Cutting it off means attacking the command centers right here in Baghdad. Killing it means bombarding supply routes from Baghdad down to Basra, which will leave the army in Kuwait without any food or water or ammunition.
Anything that allows that army to function, we will now go after. And if it becomes necessary, we are assembling a fairly sizable ground force that could finish off the job should that be necessary.
Of course, everyone in the United States hopes that won't be necessary, because a battle on the ground will almost certainly be long and bloody. But even though we now have air superiority, the Pentagon says, the Iraqis are very good at enduring the effects of aerial bombardment. And what's more, although it's easy enough to see the effect of bombing attacks on cities, it's much harder with armies in the field.
They're spread out. They're dug in. They're hiding. They're not standing out there like a building. They're avoiding air attack. They're going to put out dummies to try to deceive you as to their exact locations.
In fact, Powell says you really won't know the impact of the bombing on Saddam's army until it goes into battle.
We know we're hurting it. We really don't know how badly we've hurt it until it starts to move.
When it starts to move probably means when it tries to engage, defend itself against an American attack. General Powell said that he'd be delighted if the aerial bombardment forces the Iraqi army in Kuwait to surrender, but both he and Secretary Cheney are saying when it comes to the end of the day, it will take more than air power to win this war.
Okay, now we're going to turn to our consultant, retired Air Force General Doyle Larson, for some specific questions about the future course of the war. General Larson, when do you think our ground forces will invade Kuwait?
Well, I think we could see several more weeks, a couple of weeks anyway, where the air power is being applied, and perhaps the ground forces are maintaining light contact with the ground forces of the Iraqi army. But I think largely air power for several weeks.
How many lives would be lost, do you think, during a ground assault?
Well, my crystal ball probably isn't any better than anybody else's. I look back at history, I look at the Israeli-Arab wars in the past. The Israelis lost 764 killed and probably about 4,000 casualties wounded in 6 days in 1967, so it can become pretty intense. The Arab losses were even more than that. So if we can't be really very effective with air power, then the casualties may be much higher.
Now, General, what do you think? Once we have taken Kuwait, will we stop there? Do you think our forces will have to keep going for Baghdad?
Well, what we've got to try to do is get a change in government there. It may be necessary to go a little further. I frankly don't see the Allied forces, the U.S. and Brits particularly, occupying Iraq. I would think that they are going to try to use the Arab countries in the coalition to do that job.
Okay, well, thank you, General, and we're going to talk more with General Larson just a little later in the program. Well, there is no doubt that the war is having a big impact on the nation's economy. Some estimates say it's costing $1 billion a day. We asked consumer reporter Sylvia Gambardella to find out what the war could do to the economy, and she found out it all depends on how long the fighting lasts.
If the war ends in less than a month with an Allied victory, analysts say the U.S. economy would reflect the following. The Federal Reserve would lower interest rates to improve consumer and business confidence. Business spending would rebound and the stock and bond markets would rally. But if the war lasts longer than a month, analysts say oil prices would jump to about $60 a barrel. Consumer and business confidence would erode. The Federal Reserve would raise interest rates, the stock market would decline as much as 40%, and unemployment would rise.
There'll probably be a net negative impact as far as employment is concerned, and other countries may get a technological leap on us as far as consumer goods and capital goods in the non-defense areas.
Those most impacted by high unemployment will be the military reserves once the war ends, since the longer it lasts, the less experience they will have in their regular jobs, and employers might be forced to replace them. I'm Sylvia Gambardella for Money Watch.
Well, still to come on this Added Dimension special, what it's like in Baghdad during the bombing.
And then coming up later, Israel's decision not to retaliate for Iraq's missile attacks is all the more remarkable when you consider how strongly Israel has hit back in the past. Bill Hudson will take us through some of Israel's past confrontations.
Who's going to give you a great big juicy burger bursting with a taste of home? Dairy Queen. Who's going to give it to you for just 79 cents? Who's going to give you a delicious shake in a rainbow of flavors? Give it to you for just 79 cents. Burger or shake sale at your Dairy Queen store. Each just 79 cents. But hurry, because something this good just can't last. We treat you right. Dairy Queen.
Kmart presents the portrait package Moms asked for. You said,
I want more big portraits.
So we give you 3 8x10s, 4 5x7s, and a big 10x13. You also wanted
lots of portraits.
So you also get 20 wallets, 15 mini portraits, and 12 all-occasion caption portraits. That's everything you want plus something you need, a free portrait ID card. So hurry and get Kmart's biggest portrait offer ever, 55 portraits.
Including more big portraits.
All for only $14.95.
The thirst for adventure is Michelob Dry. Refreshing beyond the ordinary. And once you've experienced the bold taste with no aftertaste, there is no going back.
Don's Appliance and TV announces its huge inventory reduction sale. We need the business, and we're cutting our prices on excess inventory to get it. You'll find great deals, and we offer expert delivery, installation, and service. Plus, we carry only the top brand names. Like Magic Chef, appliances styled for the 90s and designed to fit your budget with rebates up to $500. On sale during Don's Appliance and TV's inventory reduction sale, ends Saturday in Richfield, Columbia Heights, and Burnsville.
We've seen these pictures of the aerial bombardment of Baghdad, but now imagine this. Who would choose to stay there if they had a chance to get out? A man from Bemidji did make that decision to stay.
His name is Lee Helgen, and he was part of an international peace team on a mission to Baghdad before war broke out. 14 members of that team have made their way out of Iraq, but not Lee Helgen. He decided to stay a while longer, but expects to leave soon. Today we talked by phone with Bruce Wolcott, another member of the peace mission, about what it's like in Baghdad right now. Wolcott is now in Amman, Jordan.
It's unpredictable when the bomb rates occur. They were occurring, it was random. Sometimes they were every 2 hours, sometimes they were every 8 hours, sometimes they were every 4 hours, and it was really hard to predict when the bombing would take place. And of course, that's a concern if you're driving out of the city. You know, there had been bombs that had come fairly close to the hotel, and they seem to be closer to civilian areas. And I know when we left Baghdad, there was what seemed to be a 4-story apartment building that was completely demolished by a bomb. And it's a very devastating thing. You can imagine what it would be like, say, in Minneapolis if this happened. Electricity and water and gas and all of the basic necessities of life were cut off. It's a very terrifying kind of thing.
And Walcott told us that the Iraqis he talked with seemed determined to continue to fight the Allies.
And it is getting harder and harder to get an accurate picture of exactly what's happening, especially in the battle zone itself. Both the U.S. and Iraqi armies are exercising control over news reports. Cindy Hilger is in our satellite center to talk about the propaganda war.
Don, CNN reporter Peter Arnett remains the only Western television journalist in Iraq. And there is concern about what the Iraqis, how they censor his stories. Well, today, 2 of his reports from Baghdad, came under heavy fire from U.S. military leaders. In one report, Arnett told of what the Iraqis said was a bombing of a baby formula plant. The Iraqis led Arnett there to report on the damage. Well, the Pentagon said it had very good intelligence the factory was producing biological weapons. Arnett's second report was how Iraqi citizens are leading normal lives.
To say that such and such an installation was hit for the 4th night, and they don't want me to talk about the changing skyline of Baghdad. So that comes under military security, and I know they wouldn't let me talk about anything about movements of any military hardware around that I would see.
Well, Arnett is under extremely strict censorship, even control by the Iraqis, for whom propaganda has been a weapon of war. Hussein has used Iraqi airwaves to urge other Arabs outside Iraq to join a holy war against the United States, saying U.S. warplanes are bombing holy sites. And when Iraqis showed American POWs bruised and shaken on Iraqi TV, it was done for Americans. Hussein believes Americans don't have the stomach for war. The United States has done its share of providing misinformation, some because they believe Hussein sees American television. And when Iraq misses a Scud target, for example, and TV reports say where it landed, the Pentagon believes Hussein will adjust his targets to be more effective. Some reporters complain that the non-security answers are just too difficult to get.
So you can't really tell what I'm talking about because I don't want the Iraqis to know what I'm talking about. But trust me, trust me.
I don't have any information on that report.
I can't comment on that at this point.
I'd have to refer you to the Saudis.
Well, as for reporting on the front lines, it means reading between the lines, such as today, when Iraqi radio told listeners it had defused 400 American missiles and fired most of them back at the Allied forces. Don, back to you.
That seems to be it. Well, that's a question we'll ask Doyle Larson, the general, to see if that can be done. Our Added Dimension special will continue in just a moment.
Bill Hudson and General Doyle Larson will talk about Israel and why it has not yet retaliated against Iraq.
Cold winter? Hot meals, hot deals at Hardee's. Succulent roast beef piled high on a regular sandwich with crispy curled potatoes, all for $1.99. Or a hot ham and cheese sandwich, delicious smoked ham, topped with melted Swiss with crispy curled potatoes, also $1.99. 2 hot meals, 2 hot deals, only at Hardee's. Oh, so good.
Perfection. It's a dirty job, but somebody's got to do it. Abra Auto Body. Perfection.
How do you improve America's design-leading Ford Taurus? It already offers a powerful, fuel-efficient V6 engine, 6-passenger seating, driver's side airbag, plus air conditioning, AM/FM cassette, power locks, rear window defroster, and more. How do you improve America's design leader? Call it the 91 Ford Taurus L Plus and offer it for under $300 a month with over $1,600 in savings. Your local Northland Ford dealer really knows how to make a great car even better.
Well,
were you?
At the office.
Liar!
Okay, I stopped at my mother's.
Liar!
I stopped at your mother's, dear.
Liar!
I ran out of gas. All right, I was someplace else.
I knew it!
I was buying you something.
What?
Look at it. A real diamond.
Liar!
Accessories from Ethan Allen. They can make or break a room. Right now, there's a sale going on at your Ethan Allen Gallery.
Not that long ago, within the past year or so, Israel faced intense criticism when its soldiers were seen beating Palestinian youngsters during the uprising in the West Bank and Gaza Strip. Despite the criticism, it reflected the Israeli doctrine that it strikes back when it is attacked. Yet the story today is how Israel is exercising amazing restraint in the face of a much different threat. Bill Hudson is in our newsroom with a look at Israel's history of retaliation. Bill?
Colleen, Israeli retaliation against its Arab neighbors goes way back to the first days of the newly created Jewish state. May 15, 1948 began the first of 4 Arab-Israeli wars and border conflicts. It's been a precarious peace ever since, right up to today.
This kind of terrorism is not going, we cannot take it forever.
An official of the Israeli consulate from Chicago visiting the Twin Cities today in the midst of continuing missile attacks on Tel Aviv and Haifa, quoting Israel's deputy foreign minister.
The time where Jews were beaten and there was no response has gone.
The Israelis are used to biting back, either retaliating, taking an eye for an eye, as in the 1967 Six-Day War against Egypt, Jordan, and Syria, or striking first, as long before the present conflict with Saddam Hussein. Israel sent planes to destroy a nuclear reactor under construction near Baghdad, out of concern that Iraq was developing nuclear arms back in 1981, weapons Saddam might otherwise have today.
And I can only imagine how this crisis could look like if Iraq was equipped with a nuclear weapon controlled by a madman.
Israeli restraint today stands in sharp contrast to a long history of often instant reprisals. They fought back without hesitation when Arab legions burst through the newly created State of Israel in 1948, again in 56 during the Suez Crisis, once more in 73 when Egypt, Syria, Iraq, Jordan, and Libya launched a surprise attack on the Jewish holiday, Yom Kippur, only to be driven back by Israeli forces. And today, as 4.5 million people live in terror, Israelis say their patience is wearing thin.
We will be responding.
So the fact that they haven't responded yet is all the more noteworthy when you consider the Israelis' prompt and successful retaliations over the past 43 years. Colleen?
Okay, thank you, Bill.
We want to take a time now to talk with General Larson more about the issue of Israeli retaliation. If they did retaliate, what could they do strategically or tactically that the U.S. and allied forces haven't or cannot do?
Well, one of the things that you have to keep in mind is that they've always surprised us. They've always surprised the enemy. So about the time you think you have it figured out how they're going to do it, they're going to do something else. There are a couple of things, obviously options. One of their missiles could be launched, and that might be the neatest and the cleanest way to do it.
And they have a nuclear capability?
Yes, we think they do.
Would they resort to that?
I don't think so. I think it would be a conventional warhead on a missile. I think they'd probably go for Baghdad.
How about this scenario? Since they are so tactically minded that they can go in and do these little missions in a big way, do you think that the U.S. forces, allied forces, are leaving it to the Israelis to go in and get Saddam Hussein when the time is right, get him out of those bunkers?
Well, that's one option, of course. The Mossad's very competent. They're special forces.
Tell people what the Mossad is.
Mossad is their CIA covert operation. Their Entebbe raid would be another possibility. C-130s going south, go around through Saudi Arabia and western Iraq and insert some troops to do a job. Of course, F-16s, long range.
Is it possible the U.S. forces might have made a deal with the Iraqis, or with the Israelis, saying, we'll leave him to you?
Well, I can't rule that out, but that would be a political thing, and it wouldn't be a military thing. The State Department would handle that, not the military.
Okay.
You know, they've been saying, the Israelis have been saying that they will retaliate. It's just a question of when they're going to do it. What possible scenario can you think of? I mean, how long are they going to wait? Are they going to wait till we've finished, the Allied forces have finished with what we have said we intend to do, push Iraq out of Kuwait?
Oh, no, I think that if there are more successful Scud attacks and they have some people killed, then I don't think you're going to be able to keep them back no matter what you say to them. They're just going to feel that powerful emotion that they must strike back.
And they're quite capable of striking back.
Outstanding military people. They live under this constant threat day in and day out. They grow up with it. Their Air Force, of course, is incredibly good. They're so selective in picking their pilots that it's amazing. And then, of course, they have a lot of practice, a lot of training. It seems like every few years somebody decides to attack them or threaten them, and so they must respond.
Now, you worked with a lot of Israeli pilots.
I have. And
you respect them a great deal.
I respect them very much. They're fierce fighters. Their ground troops are fierce. One of the things that I think we need to all recognize is that they suffer probably a higher percentage of casualties among their officers and NCOs than any army in the world. And the reason is that their leaders are out in front of the troops. They are heading right into the combat, and so they take losses.
How could they possibly at this point retaliate without violating somebody's airspace or
Well, they'd have to cut across Saudi Arabia. That would be the only option, but they probably wouldn't ask permission. But they're certainly going to have to let us know, because we've got the AWACS aircraft up, and that's monitoring everything that flies.
And so we'd have to know that they were in the vicinity, in that theater of operations, or we'd shoot them down by mistake.
Exactly, right. We would vector F-15s at them if we didn't know about it. So if the State Department and the Israelis make some sort of a deal about this, then we're going to have to be, our military will have to be told about it.
Comment on Iraqi radio's report that you heard our satellite Senator Sidney Hilger report that they were saying they had 400 U.S. missiles that had come in dead, and they had turned around and shot them back at us. How likely is that?
Well, they probably got, it's poppycock. That's all it is, just plain poppycock.
Put it mildly.
Put it mildly.
Yeah.
They've got some Hawk missiles that they captured when they took over Kuwait, and that's probably the extent of it. And they're not going to be firing much at anybody, I don't think.
Okay.
All right. Well, General, thanks again for being with us tonight. We appreciate it.
One day you're going to have a show of your own. You know that is going to be the General Doyle Larson show.
Oh, I think that's unlikely.
Okay. Thanks. We'll be right back.
Outrageous.
Get conservative. Have you got your pearls on?
Yeah, gotta look good.
Bad. Fresh. Younger. Older.
She showed me a gazillion different frames.
Have you got your pearls on?
Those are definitely pearls.
Definitely pearls.
Bought one pair with a coupon and they gave me a second pair.
Promised they'd be perfect. Guaranteed it. Why just wear glasses when you can put on pearls?
I mean, I gotta look good.
Pearl and Pearl Vision Express for glasses in 1 hour. Call 1-800-YES-EYES for locations.
It is estimated that over 20 million people will battle nighttime colds this year. It's time for maximum strength. Countless hours of rest will be lost, lives disrupted. It's time for maximum strength. Benadryl Plus Nighttime Cold Formula, because even NyQuil doesn't give you all maximum strength ingredients. Relieve your congestion, aches, fever, and sneezing. Get Benadryl Plus Nighttime. Get maximum strength ingredients for the nighttime cold war.
Good morning. You're listening to WCCO Radio, 830.
Eric Escala with news.
The Minnesota Pollution Control Agency is moving forward with a...
Karen Falloon with weather.
We're in for a really beautiful day.
Hartman and Rosen with sports.
Mark, that's a terrible trade.
Well, don't sugarcoat it, Sid.
Boone and Erickson. News you want, people you know, on The Good Morning Show.
If you'd like to see one of the largest collections of oak furniture for your home or office, there's no place like home. If you'd like to see one of the largest collections of leather furniture for your home, there's no place like home. And if you'd like to see prices that make... carpets.